Welcome to a chilly dent repair video here in northern Michigan. It's in the high 20s today and I'm going to be fixing this dent out in the elements. Luckily I've got this Milwaukee cordless forced air heater, which it's just as much for the car as it is to keep me warm. When you're working outside in weather like this, heat guns don't quite suffice because the wind blows the heat away from the panel. And keeping the heat on the panel is pretty essential for sharp dents like this because it keeps the clear coat nice and malleable. Additionally, this glue is very temperature sensitive and the heat or lack thereof affects the bond to the panel. I'm hot gluing these tabs to the car to use this Metal Medic Beast Bar tension tool. Apply some lateral tension to the dent. Tension tools like this use a big threaded rod to push the two arms or limbs away from each other, creating tension in between the two arms. I'm now going to start gently pressing on the backside of the panel, seeing how ready the dent is to move. In this stage of the repair, I'm interested in two locations, here and the lower body line. For this repair to flow, we need to restore those body lines. I start tapping to see if the crowns want to move at all. If you listen closely, you can hear the tension difference between this part of the crown and the other areas. Starting here, I start to explore with pushes on the back of the panel. I want to see what's ready to move and what's not. I don't want to be forcing metal up. I'm going to move across the body line to try to recreate a rough idea of what it looks like. To prevent little sharp high spots, I'm using a large ball tip wrapped in Tessa tape coupled with light pushes. Still really rough, but you can see the general shape of the body line sort of coming back, and that's the goal, just to get the body line wanting to come back, and then we can tackle these really high sharp crowns. I really like this crown buster tip, and being a Subaru, you really have to be careful with how hard you punch the metal because they dent so easy. So the feet on this tension tool are a little close. So I feel like they're locking up some of the metal and they're not allowing it to flow out while I tap. So I'm going to take the feet off. I'm going to take some time to focus on the lower body line here. As I'm pushing, I'm watching around the dent and I can see that it's pretty tight. It's got some subtle crowns around the center of the impact. But before I address those, I still want to keep working up the body line so that the metal has somewhere to go when I decide to blend. Otherwise the metal will just bind up at the low points and make the lows even harder to pick up. As I'm working with the red cap, you can really notice this area start to soften up, which I'll continue to do along the rest of the body line. Over the years I've gotten better at keeping my repairs clean, which has had to do with me just becoming more patient, more precise and deliberate, but also in the form of new tools and tips. Where I just used to use rubber caps on R4 tips for the majority of the repair, I actually found that I really like to use wooden screw-on tips for sharp dents and sharp creases. In this repair I ended up using a rounded wooden tip, and I was using the dragging technique to restore some of that body line later in the repair. So you can see that the surrounding of the dent is still high, and my game plan is to pick up the low as much as it wants to be picked up in the middle. You can see where I'm working right now, and then to blend the high spots into the low. cross-checking from the opposite angle. Dents are three-dimensional, so it makes sense that you have to look and check from multiple angles to see if there are any hidden shadows or low spots. After a lot more blending and much more fine-tuning, I was able to achieve this result in just over 4 hours, and I was on a time crunch. This lady, she had to go home from work because I was doing this job at her place of work. And as you can tell, the weather wasn't having it either. It was probably going to be pretty difficult to keep pushing with all that snow.